Hey everyone, welcome to this podcast called Ken Reads, where I can read out your letter that you've shared with me in the hopes that I can better help you understand what the F just happened between you and the last partner you were dating, whether it was in a relationship or a situationship. I look at these experiences from the lens of attachment theory. I don't just come up with thought terminating cliches like, they're just not that into you, or if they wanted to, they would. While some of those phrases might have their benefit in other dynamics, I try and look at this from the lens of, is there perhaps an insecure attachment issue that's at play in these particular dynamics? And though I am an Australian counsellor, I am not someone who is going to be responding to these letters as if I was with a client. I'm here to provide validation, yes, but I can't provide any diagnoses on these. So even if, a lot of people might understandably hear this and be like, well, that sounds like a narcissist. At best, I'll probably say, sounds a bit narky. I probably won't go any further than that out of respect to my ethical boundaries in regards to what I can and can't do. If you find this of benefit to you, fantastic. That's what I want. And if you want to submit your letter, you're very welcome to, once there is obviously availability per month. And I'll happily read out and share my own 2 cents as to what I think has gone on in your dating experience to offer you a sense of validation for what you've been through, and also to give other people listening a chance to feel like maybe this relates to what they've also experienced as part of collective healing. So with that all out of the way, let's dive in to the latest letter. For today's letter, we are taking Pedro's story of what he experienced with his fearfully avoidantly attached ex. Let's dive straight in. Pedro writes to me, first of all, thank you for your content. It has helped me a lot. You are very welcome, Pedro. I met my now ex, who I believe was a fearful avoidant, on August 22, and we talked about exes, past relationships, and what we were looking for. I was captivated by him immediately. We decided to keep talking and take our time and get to know each other. On September the 8th, he tells me he is ready to move and formalize a relationship, that he's convinced I am his manifestation and I offer him what he wants in a relationship because of the communication, patience, and love I provide. I expressed my limits and wanted to arrange some agreements between us, but he said nothing and he was silent, and nor was he accepting nor denying anything that was put on the table. So, in totality, he seemed like he was pretty agreeing with everything that we laid out. 1 week later, he says his first I love you to me. The relationship was great, but there were some red flags because he'd ended his biggest relationship in March of 2024, then jumped to a 1 month relationship in June, which ended in July. And then we met on August 22nd. So he hadn't really had much time in between us. He connected very quickly with all my family and friends, and he included me with his family but not his friends. He started giving me a lot of gifts, or he'd give them to my family, even to some of my friends. Some were small, nice, but he thought that he underestimated his own gifts. I was very loving and caring and told him I loved everything he did. Okay, Pedro, let's take a little moment here to say, firstly, you seem like you've gone into this with eyes wide open, meaning you're not someone who is just, going into this like a love story, being like, oh my God, this is amazing. This guy, he's just giving me everything I ever wanted. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's slow it down. Let's talk about things. Let's talk about what I want. Let's talk about what you want. And it seems like this guy, your ex, who I might call Fernando for the sake of being contextualized with the Spanish setting. I don't know if you're sorry, I know you're Spanish speaking. I don't know if you're in Latin America, if you're living in Spain or another part of the world, but I'm just going to call your ex Fernando for the sake of making this a little bit easier for listeners and also for myself. If he is in fact not a Spanish speaker, I apologize. I'm just doing this because I am being cheeky, but I'm also just doing this because I figured this will just make things a little easier. So Fernando He's kind of coming into this with a lot of intensity, right? He's left his ex back in, what was it? March. He then got into a 1 month relationship. I'd call that more of a situationship, if I'm completely honest. And then has met you in August. So it doesn't seem like he's really processed his last relationship, and you've noticed that. So well done. And when you were discussing what you wanted in a relationship, it almost just seems like he doesn't really know what he wants. I know that he's called you my manifestation, which on one hand, that's kind of cute, right? And look, we all, well, I won't speak for everyone, but I think a lot of us may have at one point have dabbled in vision boards and manifestation to try and summon, the love of our life to us. And hey, sometimes that works. So I can understand if Fernando's getting pretty excited by this. But I do think it's interesting that, Fernando seems to find a lot of qualities he's looking for in you. But I almost feel like it's coming from a very emotionally immature place. Like, oh my God, you're just like the love of my life who I've only known for like what, a month? So to me, it seems like there's rush. And rush, in my experience with all these letters, is that is a red flag. Just gonna say. So, anyways, let's keep going. He compared me positively with his ex, saying, "You are the healthiest relationship I ever had. I have learned and done more things with you than with my past ex. My mum likes you more than my ex. My sister likes you more than she liked my ex." And some of the other comments Fernando said included, let me just read this, and also some comments like, hey, I think, oh, okay. Fernando would say, hey, I think my ex called me to my work, or I received a call from the number of my ex's mother. Whilst I reacted from a secure place, telling him that I didn't really like these comparisons, that I appreciated the comments, I asked for him to deliver this in a different way, but thanked him for the honesty. And if he needed any support, or if he could help, or if I could help him, he could always lean on me if he wanted that extra support. And if he wanted to discuss anything further about this, he could, but Fernando said no. Okay, so what's really interesting here is there's a lot of comparisons made to the ex, and to be honest, I I worry about these comparisons because it sort of makes me think he's not over his ex. Yes, on one hand, he's obviously sharing all these wonderful things about you, and I do genuinely believe he means everything he says. He is not over his ex. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if the ex is probably a phantom ex, meaning that he probably still obsesses a bit about this ex who probably didn't treat him very well. And I know that because later say in this letter that he thought his ex was possibly a narcissist. However, often I find people who are unfortunately trauma bonded to their phantom exes, who are avoidantly attached, have a bad habit of pedestaling people who treat them badly and almost basing their self-worth on the way mentally unhealthy people view them. Meaning that if you're an avoidant attacher, right? And you don't have to be severe in your avoidant attachment style. Now, some people who are anxious can do this too, but this is this idea that you place your self-worth in the hands of someone. I guess this is actually true across the attachment spectrum. You place your self-worth in the hands of someone who's treating you badly, rather than being able to have that sense of security in yourself to know what they're saying about me is absolute trash and I don't necessarily need to hold on to anything they're saying. Some parts maybe for me that I need to work through, but not all of what they're saying or throwing at me is my stuff. It could be their projections, etc. So the point I'm trying to get at is to say that I think there's a lot of, again, intensity in what he's telling you, Pedro, but I don't think that he is well and truly over his ex. I feel like he's playing a game of comparisons, and I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back to his ex at one point. That is a prediction. I haven't read ahead through the full letter, so I don't know what happens at the end, but we shall see, won't we? All right. There were other comments like when Fernando would say to me, I love you. And he'd often reply, let it be seen and let it be noticed. For context, we're Spanish speaking, and this is the best translation in English to demonstrate our love for one another. So I guess from this, what I'm hearing is Pedro is saying that when I would say to Fernando, I love you, Fernando would say, show me, demonstrate it, prove it to me. That's the sort of gist I'm getting from it. Fernando complained a lot about the ex, also saying he was a narcissist and he was even violent to him physically and emotionally. There you go. I didn't realize he was physically and emotionally violent, but wow, I am sorry for Fernando going through that because that is terrible. But something again tells me he ain't over his narcissistic ex. All was smooth. There were no major discussions. In December, he'd lost his job momentarily and was stressed, focusing on work. Um, and he was quite extreme in terms of his work focus. Come January the 8th of 2025, he asked me how I'd feel if he posted a photo of his abdomen. I said it's your social media and your body, and I'm not going to limit you, but this question now triggered me. He reacts defensively. He's totally avoidant for one day, and I give him space. Next day, I contacted him asking him to talk about what we need to discuss. We talk in person, and he's very defensive and non-cooperative as I when I started talking to him. And he says jealousy is a deal breaker for him. I tell him that jealousy is an emotion and emotions are normal. Agreed. Well done, Pedro. Can I just say, Pedro, you communicate very well and you obviously you're no stranger to dating. I'm very impressed with how you talk and how you navigate this stuff. So well done. The toxic thing is how you reacted to them. Yes, agreed. I am not limiting you, but let's get to an agreement that if my fears come up from infidelities in the past, because those kinds of pictures, and also I've been telling you how much I love your body, and you reply with things like, yes, because you don't want a fat boyfriend. Yes, because you told me that you don't, because you don't want, you'd never wanted a fat boyfriend. And I told you that I do not like those comments and that I have never said things like that. I love you, how you were in the past now or in the future for me, that it is not important. And I've celebrated your effort, but it hurts me that my validation feels unimportant to you and you're seeking validation in others. Okay, so what I take from that, I'm hearing from you, Pedro, is that you're saying that you love his body, but it seems like Fernando is internalizing that as you only like his body when it's slim. You don't like a fat boyfriend. Like, I feel like what I'm hearing, if I'm hearing this correctly, is he's interpreting what you're saying as you only like him when he's not fat, is the sort of thing that I'm getting. I could be wrong, but what I'm sensing is that unless you specifically said, I don't like my partner to be overweight, and look, if you said that, okay, I'm sure you had your reasons for saying that. But what I'm guessing is happening, I could be wrong, is that Fernando is projecting and making it seem like, well, you just say that because you don't like a boyfriend who's overweight or is fat, right? So there's that aspect. Now, one thing that's really interesting to me is the fact that, you know, Fernando, is trying to obviously show his body to people on social media. And on one hand, you're like, yeah, you do whatever you want to do. But then you also bring up and say, hold up a minute. I've also experienced infidelity in the past, and I just need to talk to you about some of the reasons why I'm uncomfortable with this. And it seems like he's jumped the gun, gotten triggered, and been like, well, if you feel that way, that means there's jealousy between us, and I don't deal with jealousy. It's almost like he's overreacted. And you weren't saying you can't post those photos, you can't do that, you're my boyfriend. You were just saying, can we just talk about, some of these behaviors that you're demonstrating because it worries me. It worries me that you might be doing things that could breach the sanctity of our relationship. So I think that's totally fair and valid given the circumstances. And so I think that to me, there seems like a bit of an overreaction from him. And I have to say, it does seem a bit strange that he feels the need to post his abs online. I mean, unless he's like a PT, a physical trainer, like a personal trainer, a personal trainer, or someone who's just wanting to celebrate washboard abs for like one period of time. I mean, great. But at the same time, what's the need to do this? This just feels like an external validation grab. And if that's the case, that is a bit of a warning light in my books. So I can understand why you're a bit, bothered by that. And again, you seem to be very on this, Pedro. So I'm impressed with how you're navigating this. In any case, um, Pedro writes, I proposed to Fernando some solutions, but he never agreed or wanted to share his proposals. Then he drops a bomb saying that his what a surprise. Drops a bomb saying that his ex called him and that he was angry with him and asked his ex to respect our relationship. I thanked him about his honesty and asked him if he needed something from me, if he wanted to talk about it. Fernando said no. And Fernando again starts putting walls, and there are all these sorry, putting up all these walls, and I started to feel like I was losing my sense of security, becoming more anxious. I asked him, "How is our relationship?" And Fernando would reply, "I don't know." And I started to cry, and then he was a totally different person, saying that he did not understand why I was like that, why I was crying. And I told him because I feel like we're breaking up. He said, "I hate when people assume, and you should not be that anxious." I asked him for compassion and understanding and told him, "I've never invalidated your feelings. I've always been patient. You told me you are avoidant." Oh, well, there you go. And you asked me to never go away if you ever acted like like I am. And I'm respecting that you could do the same for me. And this is the first time I'm crying because of very understandable reasons. I feel like I'm being punished for having these emotions. I believe that's not okay. My God, I just want to take a moment here again, Pedro, to say I fucking love how, vulnerable you are, how you're sharing your emotions with Fernando, what you're doing. He just sounds like he doesn't want to be held responsible or accountable for what's going on. He doesn't want to feel like a bad person, which is classic. But yeah, to me, I'm like, oh no, my heart goes out to you, Pedro. This is so unfair what's going on. I feel like Fernando is totally, totally, not being fair, respectful, accountable of his side of the relationship. And I think intuitively, that he's not all in, meaning he's not he's not giving you everything in this relationship. And also, more importantly, he's even though he said, "Oh, he said to his ex, you need to respect the boundaries of my relationship with Pedro." He's still not fully invested in your relationship, and you can obviously feel it. Like you're like, "No, this doesn't feel right to me." So, like, no, I think that your reactions are totally valid, and he can't handle it. Fernando said, "I didn't want you to see me in this way." And so I reassured him that knowing that if we knew each other fully, it's because it's normal and we're expressing our love and commitment for one another. When I asked how we were, he said, "I guess we're okay." After dropping him off that day, he texted me about a health issue. I responded with patience, compassion, and love, saying it didn't change my perspective and thanked him for his honesty, and it was not my first relationship where this had occurred. We returned to normal for a while. Okay, interesting that you've written this as actually as health status. So I'm wondering, is this a sexually transmitted infection, an STI related issue? Is this something else? Curious to find out what that could be. Anyways, the following Monday, Fernando wanted to meet, but avoided discussing the photo and his ex, focusing on his own matters. He asked if our mothers could meet, which they did 2 days later. The following weekend, he opened up about personal and family issues, and we talked all night. I offered compassion and support. So, interestingly, Pedro, you seem to be a giant well of empathy. You seem to be very empathetic towards Fernando. I gotta almost question whether or not you're actually bending over backwards a bit for this guy, because it does seem like you're offering way more than he's capable of delivering. And it does feel and I could understand it feeling very unfair that you're pouring in so much effort and he's not giving. Makes me wonder. Now, this is my therapy brain speaking. It does make me wonder, okay, Pedro, where have you experienced these kind of relationships before where you've overgiven and underreceived? Because something tells me you've probably got a big heart, but you probably get walked over by people who are very emotionally unavailable. That's just a hunch. Anyways, then 1 day later, he unexpectedly changed. Fernando unexpectedly changed our sexual boundaries, asking for something different than we'd agreed at the beginning. I was open and flexible, but he was attacking me, or I felt he was because he was saying 3 times, "But think about it." I told him I felt attacked, and he said, "No, you are wrong." I finished saying that, but there is another topic. He mentioned wanting to close a cycle with his ex, and he says, "And to be clear, what I mean is I want to close it for you, not to think about other things. I just want to give this closure." I reminded him of my boundary around exes, but he disagreed, saying, "I disagree, and this depends on the moral, ethic, and responsibilities of each person." The next day, he met his ex. informing me only 30 minutes before without giving me time to discuss it. That is disgusting fucking behavior. I knew this was going to happen. You know, this is why people who are in trauma bonds can actually be a real, like, there can be a real danger to new partners and to themselves because they're not being honest with themselves in these cases. This is like a case of a human addict. You know, he's addicted to his ex and the punishment and reward cycles of his ex. He's not used to being with someone like you. This is so unfair to you, though. No, this is not good at all. Even though obviously a part of him doesn't like his ex, he's totally addicted to his ex. So yeah, this is not great. And to be honest, he's also totally violating the sanctity of your relationship with him. You know, you're like, as a boundary, this isn't okay. And he's like, well, I get to do whatever I want because it depends on like the ethics, the morality, the responsibilities of each other. It's like, fuck off. No, you're just cheating on me now. Like, you're just choosing to open up our relationship without involving me in that decision. And you're using psychobabble and all this other free spirited, free love language to get away with this. No, this isn't okay. One thing I want to point out, for those of you who are not familiar with the LGBTQIA plus community, one of the biggest things we struggle with in dating is when we're dating someone who suddenly wants to open up the relationship, still have ongoing conversations with an ex or a new partner who they say is a friend. We shouldn't worry about them, but then they end up cheating on us with that friend who they told us not to worry about. It is so common for that to happen in our shared community space. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because what I'm seeing here between Fernando and Pedro is very symptomatic of that whole thing of like, oh, well, let's just open up the relationship. I'm going to tell you this now as a gay man who is in this space. That is a giant red flag and a giant boundary violation. If you want to be with someone who decides to just randomly open up the relationship like that, I'm going to tell you now, it is the beginning of the end. And they likely do have a severe avoidant attachment style. And they're trying to lean on the whole free love angle to be like, well, monogamy clearly isn't a thing for us. It's like, no, you have trauma and you just don't like commitment and intimacy. This isn't a thing about free love. So, yeah. And that is not to say that free love is entirely bad or that people shouldn't try polyamorous relationships or even be polyamorous. That is not what I'm saying. But it is something I have noticed with severe avoidances. They try and bend the rules of what is morally acceptable in relationships and using their own intellectualizing to justify their bad behavior. And it's simply not okay. And that isn't just a gender related issue or a sexuality related issue. That's across the board. Anyways, God, I'm feeling sorry for you, Pedro. This is so unfair. He texts back an hour and a half later saying he closed the cycle with his ex, but he's overwhelmed. That night, he sent his next text, which read as follows. Hello. Today was a very heavy day for me. I've been thinking about many things in general, and regardless of having seen my ex and having been able to close cycles with him, I want to tell you how I feel. I feel weird, you know? I won't lie to you because we agreed to tell the truth. My ex moved some emotions to the extent that for now I'm confused. I know that you're a good man and you have been a complete gentleman since the day I met you. I hope that I have been the same with you, but for now I want to tell you what I want to. I want to end it between us. I regret that it's so abrupt or hard, but for now, I'm confused in the sense of the word, and sincerely, I would not like to hurt you or mess it up. I know you love me, and believe me, I do too, but I know that for now, it's for the best. I have never been good in these situations, but I want to tell you that you're a good man. I always liked your kind and positive side to life, the way you helped me grow, because as I mentioned to you, with you, I did things I never thought I would do. I would really tell you that if you wanted to continue talking to me, I'll be available to listen to you and support you. But I don't know if you feel comfortable with that. I love you. I'm sorry if this is sudden, but you're a good man. If at any time you want to talk about this, I'm available to listen to you. I do not close my doors to you. Fuck off. Seriously, fuck off, Fernando. Like, what a, like, seriously, just no. Okay, so Fernando's shown a habit of just selfishly doing whatever he wants in this relationship with you, Pedro. He just fucking opens up the relationship, does what he wants. This is bullshit. Ugh. Anyways, let's see what you say. So, Pedro says, I called Fernando and asked him to visit me in person. He agrees, we talk, and he was very defensive. I tell him that this is a safe space and I'm not here to confront him or battle. I just want to talk to him. He walls up and says nothing more than, I love you, but I don't want to mess it up. I am confused. I give up. And I tell him I love him too and ask him for him to think about it. He agrees, and I just take him by the hand and tell him I want to be with him to walk through every difficult situation we have in life, to be the pillar of each other, and that I also love him. Oh, can I just take a moment here to say, Pedro, I really feel like you really care about this guy. Listen, I know Fernando's doing some horrible things to you, but I want to make it clear you don't fall in love. We don't fall in love with the avoidance in our lives because of their avoidant behavior, right? We fall in love with them because of those very tender, very soft parts where we know they're actually like there's a very, how do I put it? There is a very childlike part of a lot of these people. And, I think we often become very maternal, paternal, parent-like, if you will, to these individuals because we feel like, oh, this is such a vulnerable person. I want to get close and I want to, support them through this. I want to prove that I can show them love. I'm not here to psychoanalyze this and be like, why that can be problematic. The point simply is to validate and say, oh, I feel you have a big heart, Pedro. Anyways, 1 week later, Fernando sends another text message. Hi, I hope you're doing well. Can I just take a moment here to say I did a video on this ages ago where I was making a satire of how avoidant attachers often speak to you when they're communicating and how they often don't refer to you by your first name. I don't know if this is, I don't know if Pedro, the letter writer, did this intentionally or not, but it's always interesting to me how sometimes some severely avoidantly attached exes can't even fucking write your first name. It's like, can you stop depersonalizing me? Anyways, it is very interesting. Anyways, he writes, Hi, I hope you're doing well. I know the days have gone by quickly. Remember our last conversation about whether to continue or let go? I've made my decision. I will. Oh, wow. Okay. I really should up my rates for this. I will get back to my ex. You didn't do anything wrong, and sometimes we act without knowing if it'll be good or bad. I want to be honest with you. We did everything good. If you ever need support, count on me. Have a good night. Fuck off, Fernando. Fuck right off. Just no, 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 no. Oh, I knew this was gonna happen. God, I say that half joking that I should get paid more for these sort of things, but it's so predictable, isn't it? Now, to a lot of you long-term listeners, you might have also been groaning and rolling your eyes, being like, "Oh yeah, we know how this is going to go." But it's just one of those things, isn't it? Where isn't it wild? I just want to take a moment just to say, isn't it wild how people who are like this, right? They're with a partner who they can tell is good, showing up well, they've getting love, they realize that, yeah, you're better than my toxic ex, but they choose to go back to the goddamn toxic ex, right? Like, I want to make it clear that if I was working with Fernando in therapy, I'd be like, okay, what is it about this relationship with your ex that what is it there for you that you really get hooked on? Like, what's there for you? And I know the general themes and answers. It feels like home. It feels safe. It feels familiar. It is, even though it's dysfunctional, it feels like there's chemistry here. It feels right to me. I understand all those reasons because I've heard it from fearful avoidance before. It makes a lot of sense to me. But to be on the receiving end of that, it makes no goddamn sense whatsoever because it's like, why would you choose something bad over something that's good? Doesn't make rational sense, right? But in relationships, we are dealing with highly, highly emotional reasoning that doesn't make logical sense. And if you can get around and you get your head around that, it will make things a lot clearer for people. I think a lot of us come into these experiences thinking, oh, well, if I'm better than the ex, I will do better. Not always so. It's one of those things where, unfortunately, you know, we have to be very aware of cases like this where someone is clearly not over someone like that. And I've dated people like Fernando before, and I could tell it was not what I call finished. There was unfinished business there for my version of Fernando, and I'm so glad I didn't pursue that at the time because I could just sense it. Now, does that mean that everyone you date is going to be like Fernando? If they talk about an ex all the time, does it mean it's unfinished business? That is going to be something you're going to have to figure out. If they keep bringing them up, it might suggest that that is indeed unfinished business. But if it's someone who's like passing in the wind who they don't think about or talk about, probably not. I have worked with a lot of avoidant clients who have had phantom exes, and those phantom exes have treated them horribly, cheated on them, physically abused them, done god awful things. And I think there is a very big punishment reward cycle that they go through with these trauma bonds. And it's really hard at times to educate and also to emotionally connect with them and be like, are you sure this is actually a healthy relationship for you? And it can be bloody hard to peel them away from these, frankly, very dysfunctional people. So, in a way, I do feel sorry for Fernando, but at the same time, he's made a choice and he's totally violated the trust and also sanctity of your relationship with you, Pedro. So, yeah, it's, oh God, it's complicated, isn't it? Anyways, I'm assuming this is now Pedro's reply to Fernando. Hi, I'm managing as well as I can. Your news surprised me, especially after our recent weekend and everything else. I was trying to give you space and let you close the cycle. Yeah, this is definitely Pedro to Fernando. Pedro writes, although you told me not to worry, it hurt. I feel betrayed, good on you, because I fell deeply in love with you. God, this is written well. But I accept your message. I understand things can be overwhelming for you. I regret not providing a completely open communication around space, but I feel used and powerless. But I respect your decision. I wish you all the best. You are something beautiful and will be a lovely memory to me. I heard your message about support, but I'll distance myself. Good on you. If you need me specifically, contact me. Otherwise, be happy and take care. I'd say yes to all of that. Because I'm more experienced, I wouldn't even be open to the offer of support. I'd be like, no, fuck that, goodbye. But anyways, good on you. Well written, and you've clearly been around the street. You know your stuff from dating, from the sounds of it. So I'm really impressed. And it sounds like you've been to therapy too. Like you really get a lot of this stuff. So I'm really impressed by how you're navigating this. Anyways, I'm assuming this is something that you wrote again. I'm assuming this is what Pedro writes to Fernando. Just one last thing. Never play with someone's feelings like that and make them fall in love. No one deserves that love bombing and then cutting off abruptly because you were always waiting for your ex. It's unfair to use people as options. Ah, Pedro, what a champion. I love what you've written consistently. I love what you've said. My God, I wouldn't be surprised if people listening to this will be like cheering, being like, go, Pedro. Fuck yes. This is amazing. So many people would love to have said what you've said. I've said that to my ex. I'm actually very glad I said something like that to my ex because I was like, fuck yes, you actually need to know how this hurts people. Although my ex didn't go back to an ex, but the point simply is that yes, well done. I love what you've written. Anyways, I'm assuming Fernando writes this. I only know what I did. That's your perspective. I'm sorry it looked like that, but I'll take this advice into account. Thank you for everything. What a just no. Just that's such a bullshit reply. Not taking any accountability for the damage done. So not okay. Anyways, no, sorry, Pedro writes, I checked Fernando's social media and saw he left our pictures, but removed the notes of them with phrases like, one way or another, I feel a lot of peace with you, of lyrics of songs, and posted the photo with a song that was supposed to be our wedding song. I was in conflict about that last message, blaming him, and I sent him an apology where I replied, Hi, I accept your apology. Thank you for your message. I hope you're doing well. Take good care of yourself and know you are still worth a lot. You're a very good person. Remember it. Thanks for everything. A couple of days later, I was weak and I sent him a happy birthday message, which was short and to the reply. He replied in an audio message. Hey, how are you? Thanks for the congratulations. Sorry for the delay. Work has been horrible. Take care. Have a nice day. Let's stay in touch. Eye roll. I just replied, I'm glad you're back at work. You know it would be hard, but you are capable. Much success. That was our last conversation. I blocked him from social media, but kept him on WhatsApp. Good on you. I still feel I lost the love of my life and am hurt by his actions. I believed his ex was always on his mind. He felt something for me, but was conflicted. You bet he was. But that does not justify how he acted. Absolutely not. Because I feel Fernando was pushing himself to feel things or compare us, put us in a kind of test or contest, even fault finding in everything he did since the photo. I felt like little stones thrown at me to provoke an avalanche or a negative reaction from me. Yeah, he was definitely fault finding and baiting you for conflict. I recognize his choice, but also the lack of respect and communication he gave to our relationship. I am not sure, but because of much of his actions, I suspect he's a fearful avoidant. Oh, yeah, he is. He told me he was going to therapy, but honestly, I never saw any indication of him taking sessions. Um, Oh, okay, so he was taking sessions online, as you mentioned on our first date. Okay, got it. So he was taking Thursday sessions virtually, but it didn't seem like there was any evidence of that. I know it's not good, but my mind is still thinking he'll come back. But another part knows I was the rebound, but I offered him true connection, openness, empathy, and love, and still feel I lost something great. I'm working on moving on and understand the lessons from this experience, also considering all the red flags and the bad damage he caused. Aw, Pedro, I'm so sorry that you've gone through this, and I feel for you big time. Listen, I know you might feel like a rebound, I think that word is used in such a derogative way, like, oh, you're going to be the sloppy seconds, the person they're going to use and abuse, and then they're going to get with someone else because they don't actually really care about you. But I think what you've said is true, which is I do think he has a lot of strong positive feelings for you. And he is, as you said, conflicted. He's definitely not over his ex. He probably won't achieve closure with his ex for at least a few more years because I've seen how that goes. And to be honest, I think that the danger of what he's done is not taking any accountability for himself. I'm sorry that you've gone through this because this is bullshit. And I also think too that, it's okay that you still miss him. It's okay that a part of you is hoping he'll come back because you're probably pining and missing that amazing side of him that was there for you. So I'm really sorry that that part of him is no longer showing up for you the way that you've shown up for him, which is just sad. So yeah, I'm so sorry that you've gone through this, Pedro. Fernando behaved terribly with you. I know there was some parts of him that were great. I'm not denying that. But this is a story that we've heard many, many times over. All right, Pedro, thank you for submitting your letter to me. This was really great to read. Now, for those of you who are interested in submitting letters, I've currently closed the submissions off till I think it's like I've got letters up until mid-June on the basis that I've got a few holidays in between and I just want to take some time away before I open these up again. But my team's reading letters if you want them to read without me. I'm just also slowing down a lot of my operations at the moment because I just want to get some balance and treat this more like a marathon than a sprint because I have been sprinting a little too hard with my business and I'm trying to work on myself so that way I don't burn out. Anyways, thank you for your submission. I hope that those of you who listened to it found it valuable, especially for you, Pedro. I hope it was validating. And I am sorry that you've had this experience.